just listen. And let them talk about their personal experiences without feeling the need to make it about you.
I live in the ghetto. I live in the ghetto. Nobody else got their hand on their butt. Stop the deportation! No borders! No nation! Stop the deportation!
Alright, hey YouTube. If it's a little dark in my filming area, just know that I am filming right as the sun sets. Whew, this video has taken me all day since yesterday to fully film because it's a touchy subject, it's serious. I might even turn off the likes and dislikes for this, and I feel like it is so under discussed on YouTube, especially being a black woman who is a YouTuber. Yesterday I went to Unite the Right to rally to counter protest and just to actually see up close and personal the extremes of what I experience every day. I went there and I'm going to share a little bit of my experience. Afterwards, I actually went to go see the movie The Black Klansman. Everybody should see that movie. It is very eye-opening, and I'm going to tell you guys now, I had a very emotional response to the movie, seeing that directly after the rally experience. It wasn't like Charlottesville.
The street screaming and crying.
We told city council we did not want them here. We told the police we did not want them here. They let them come.
There was a very small turnout on their part. The city is taking it as a win, and I'm so proud of DC and all the people that showed up and how wonderful the camaraderie was amongst people in DC. I also don't want anyone to get distracted by this win for progression. Just because people didn't fully show up or weren't fully in attendance doesn't mean this isn't a problem. Doesn't mean that everything is solved. I want to touch base on not only psychology a little bit, but also just my personal experiences as a black woman, a YouTuber, in the entertainment industry, daily life. I hope this video can be helpful predominantly to men and women of color who have possibly had parallel experiences and may not have heard their favorite YouTubers speak on this topic, because guess what? Something we deal with is the possibility of, if we're too socially progressive, we might not get brand deals. And if we speak too heavily on racial topics that pertain so much to us, it actually could affect our money. So a lot of people don't speak because of fear of not being able to pay their bills. I believe firmly in standing for something or falling for anything. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to acknowledge in this video, and I'll get deeper, much deeper into this, is that one thing I need everyone to understand, whether you are black, you are white, or a part of the wonderful collective of minorities we have here in America and all around the world, we live and receive different realities, okay? Your reality and my reality are not the same. And the way I would describe it best is probably if I compare it to the Matrix a little bit. I feel like black people every day, we experience a sub-reality of what your everyday person might experience. And the way I describe it is, I feel like I have three consciousnesses. There's my human consciousness that has the daily struggles of just being a human.
The new report says more than 4 out of 10 Americans under the age of 20 belong to racial or ethnic minorities, and in nearly 1 in 10 counties, minorities are now the majority.
And then there's the woman consciousness.
When I am assertive, I'm a bitch. When a man is assertive, he's a boss. But when you're a girl, you have to be like everything. You have to be dope at what you do, but you have to be super sweet, and you have to be sexy, and you have to be this, and you have to be that, and you have to be nice, and you have to, it's like, I can't be all those things at once. I'm a human being.
Your period starts while you're in public. That's something, as a woman, you're more conscious of than maybe a man. And then add all that up, and then you add the Black consciousness. And I'm gonna get more into the things that I've had to deal with that are so under discussed here on YouTube. And I want also my young followers, especially who may be Black or may have experienced racism, to know that you're not alone. And some things you may be experiencing, and you think, you might look up at these Black YouTubers that seem fine all the time and never talk about racism, are experiencing it too behind closed doors. And then also, if you are white and you're watching this, I hope that this can be an eye-opening video, and also stay to the very end, because I'm going to share some things that you can do to be very helpful in the daily experiences that maybe me or my family or someone I know that looks like me may be going through right now, and also learn how you might contribute to it and not even know. The first thing I want to talk about is microaggressions.
Microaggression. Definition: noun. A statement, action, or incident regarded as an instance of indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group, such as a racial or ethnic minority.
And microaggressions also go under the name of covert racism, and sometimes it's subconscious and people don't intentionally realize that they're doing something very hurtful, right?
Often the term microaggression is denounced by persons not in a severely marginalized group. This form of denial is a defense mechanism to avoid hearing uncomfortable information that does not align with normalized, subtle racism. Some say they're so sensitive. Microaggression is a small moment, a paper cut. Thousands of paper cuts every day in the same place does not allow scar tissue and soon becomes an infected wound.
That January 2018 study in the Journal of Multicultural Counseling and Development found that of counselors who had clients reporting race-based trauma, 89% identified covert acts of racism as a major contributing factor. The University of Minnesota actually comprised a chart of examples of microaggressions. Now, these are not all of them, but they broke them down into categories. And I actually had a pit in my stomach when I read this, because I've experienced all of these multiple times. And I called my mom and I read the entire list, and she's experienced every last one of them as well. Listen to these categories and these examples. Comment below if you've experienced any of these or all of these like me. Alien in your own land or country. Getting the "what are you" question. Where are you really from? I'm American born, and what that question incites is that you're not American. Because you are a person of color, or you look a certain way, or you look foreign, you're not American.
New student joining us? She just moved here all the way from Africa.
Welcome. I'm from Michigan.
When in actuality, the only true Americans are Native Americans. We are all from somewhere else. So I encourage white listeners to know that you have to think about your history as well when you ask questions like that. Where are you from? Where is your family from? Because none of us are from here. Ascription of intelligence, assigning intelligence to a person of color on the basis of their race. You're so articulate. Someone making an assumption about your intelligence. As a Black woman, that assumption is oftentimes that I am unintelligent or uneducated. I've been told numerous times in my life by white men and white women how articulate I am. I rarely get this comment from people of color. And if they do say it, they saw my TED Talk and they say, the way you wrote that speech was beautiful. But when you say, wow, and it's also the shock factor that people use. From my personal experience, they're shocked. They are like, she's articulate, oh, wow. And in my personal experience, the reason that is offensive is because, yes, I may be articulate and well-spoken, but so are so many of the Black women I grew up with. They're all just the most intelligent, beautiful, well-spoken women. And so my articulate nature is not a surprise to me. So when it's a surprise to a white person, I'm like, what did you expect me to be? You know what I mean? Because of this, you're actually playing into a stereotype when you say that. So instead, maybe say, that was put beautifully, or something of that nature. Color blindness. When I look at you, I don't see color. I'm colorblind. I don't see color. The problem with this, and a lot of people still don't see the problem with this from just conversations I've had, is you're denying a person of a certain race or a certain culture their identity. Even saying like America's a melting pot. We're all part of one race, the human race. Yes, that is true, but you are downplaying their identity. A way I could compare that is, let's say you have a name. Let's say your name is Nick, and somebody says, I don't see names. I don't see names at all. We're all just one big name. All names are comprised of letters. We are all just a compilation of many letters. But I have a name. This one's a touchy one for me because I've experienced this a lot. Assumption of criminal status. A person of color is presumed to be dangerous, criminal, or deviant on the basis of their race. Examples of this could be a white woman or man clutching their belongings when a black person or Latino person, etc. walks by, a store owner following a customer of color around the store, someone waiting to ride the next elevator so they don't get on with you. I've experienced this a lot, y'all. I've been followed around so many stores in my life that it's almost the normal part of my shopping experience to be followed.
She think I'm stealing. Look.
They're in the yellow suit. See, look, there he go. Following me. Watch, there he go again.
No, you take care of him.
No, Mary, I'll take care of you.
They're on their phone behind the register on Twitter, right? I come into the store. I always greet them. I'll say hello. I walk in, grab a basket. I always feel like this subconscious need to grab a basket or grab a cart because I feel like if I'm just walking around holding stuff, they're gonna follow me. And that's like, what the fuck? I shouldn't feel that way, right? That person will come from behind the counter and some people might be like, oh, it's just because they're trying to be helpful. It's just because they're trying to be helpful. No, they'll always ask, do you need any help with anything? And I'll say, no, I'm okay. I know exactly what I came for. And then they'll magically start restocking. They always make sure they're in eyesight distance from me.
She been following me around the store the whole time. There she goes. She think I'm stealing.
For all the excuses people will make to deny me of my personal truths and my personal experiences. Oh, she was just being attentive, or she was just trying to watch the store. This happens when I'm in crowded stores too. This happens in department stores during Christmas time when it's fully packed. This happens during the dry season when it's empty. It happens in gas stations. There are no excuses. This happens to me all the time, even as a child. And it's not even like, oh, once or twice. If I were to give a percentage, I'd say about 91% of the time someone's watching or following me around the store. I've definitely had the purse clutching experience more than enough times. We were getting brunch, eating waffles, laughing, having a great time. She comes and she just clutches her purse up like this. She's demanding the waiter, like, the waiter's like, we have a packed house, like, I can't seat you anywhere else. She's like, anywhere else, I need you to be sat anywhere else. Finally, they got her a seat, and then as she walked off, she said, filthy as she left. I could go on with experiences for days, y'all, so I'm gonna keep going. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is so much better, y'all. I should have thought of this earlier. Denial of individual racism. Saying I'm not a racist, I have black friends, or as a woman, I know what you're going through, or as another minority, I know what you're going through, etc. That, I've heard that too many times to count. Statements which assert that race does not play a role in success. So saying, I believe the most qualified person should get the job and everyone can succeed in this society if they work hard. And what this basically says, people of color are given unfair benefits due to their race because of affirmative action, etc. Or people of color are in some way lazy or incompetent. That's why they're not succeeding.
The Harvard Business Review noted that since 1990, white applicants received on average 36% more callbacks than black applicants and 24% more callbacks than Latino applicants with identical resumes.
The notion that values and communication styles dominate white culture are ideal. Asking a black person, why are you so loud and animated? Being upset with people who have accents or being annoyed with thick accents. Believing that the King's English is the predominant way you should speak in all of America. That's unfair because you're asking others to assimilate to your ideals and your views on how things should be. You never looked into their reality and why they are the way they are and why they're animated and where they come from. Another microaggression that people of color we experience, well, especially me, I'm just speaking from my personal experience, second-class citizen themed microaggression. Some examples of this that University of Minnesota said is a person of color mistaken for a service worker. This has happened to me so much, and the reason why this is hurtful, and this is a microaggression in one of the highest forms, is because every time someone mistakes me for an employee at a place of retail or what have you, I'm never dressed anything like the uniform for that place of retail or service. Not restocking anything, I'm just shopping. I'll often have a basket or a cart with me. What's even more disrespectful is some people won't even ask, do you work here? They literally will just assume you work there. This has happened to me at my own events, okay? So bringing this back to YouTube, because a lot of this is very current. I'm not just speaking from the distant past before racism ended. This is literally as close as yesterday, okay? I remember I was speaking on a panel for a YouTube event, and literally there was somebody that was like, excuse me, can you show us where the bathrooms are? In a very condescending manner, in a manner that insinuated I was with custodial staff, assuming that I knew where the bathrooms were. And I am dressed in high heels, I have my hair curled, a snazzy little outfit on, and a talent badge on. Or someone will ask me to do some type of service act for them, assuming that people of color are there to serve. That is why this microaggression is particularly dangerous and particularly hurtful. And then I'll go on stage and then people will be like, oh, you're the person they're waiting for? Racism and microaggressions don't end with success. And people always want to say, like, the way you beat all the haters is becoming more successful. Success is the best revenge. Success doesn't change racism. One of my good friends who's actually a PR agent, and she is up there, like, she works with the head people, and she's helping host a major event and a meet and greet for me. So she's there. She was flown in just to assist with this event because she's so knowledgeable and wonderful at what she does. Shortly after my meet and greet, because they made a green room in the dressing room for me. Mind you, this woman is Muslim and she is black. The woman comes out of the dressing room and me and her are just talking, again, both dressed formally, and we're both waiting by a green room holding waters. And she's like, excuse me, and she points right at her and she says, can you zip my dress up? Like, kind of like in an annoyed voice, almost as if we were two employees slacking off. We both looked at each other like this and we were just like, and then she just shook her head and she just shrugged. Meanwhile, this woman is shopping in a department store and she just had one of the head PR representatives for a major brand sold in this very store to zip up her dress in a servant way, and she walked off without saying thanks. So another one that a lot of people don't pay attention to are environmental microaggressions. Not all microaggressions that people of color experience every day are verbal. It's oftentimes things in the environment that subconsciously say hurtful things to us, or things that create a feeling of inferiority. For example, one of the examples they gave in this article from University of Minnesota was statues, many statues being placed across a college campus that are all of white men. And especially when there are a number of men and women of color that have served this country and contributed wonderful things, which I'll also get into later. Buildings and all these streets and all these places in the United States being named after white men and women, and even noticing that the ones named after influential people of color are restricted to the ghettos and the Section 8s. One of the bridges that's named after Martin Luther King in Baltimore, underneath it, there are dozens of homeless people that sleep under that bridge. Property value, real estate, all these things that create a segregation in that environment. What is that telling people of color about their environment? What is that telling black people? That even if you're great, your name will not be on walls at universities and in these major cities. Your name will be restricted to a bridge homeless people sleep under. What does that tell us subconsciously? Another example of environmental microaggressions is like the overcrowding of public schools for African Americans. When I've spoken to a lot of my friends, when I did go to a predominantly white university, and we talked about class sizes and school sizes, even the students that went to larger schools tended to have very responsible and respectful class sizes that allowed them to still learn. In my high school experience, I had one class that was a normal classroom size. It wasn't a room to accommodate this number of people, and we had about 80 people in the classroom. Not all of us had materials to learn, and we often had to share. Not all of us had chairs or places to sit, so some people had to sit on the floor in the aisles, and that just became a normal part of my experience. Also, microaggressions that also play with the mind subconsciously in impoverished neighborhoods is Dave Chappelle made a joke where he knows he's in the hood when you see gun store, liquor store, gun store, liquor store. They always talk about the drug problems in black communities and the alcoholism and the guns and stuff, but you're not putting phenomenal libraries in the community. You're not putting resource centers in the community. You're not putting safe spaces and counseling centers in the community. You're not putting after school programs that are abundant in funding, uniforms and highlight reels in the community. You're putting gun stores and liquor stores in the community and telling these kids to thrive. That's a microaggression based on environment. This is a little bit touchier and riskier to talk about, I guess, but it's my truth as well. I've experienced several microaggressions at YouTube events from other YouTubers who are white. I'm not gonna say her name. It was a girl, she's been on YouTube for a long time, since she was young, and she has a couple million subscribers. I'm thinking like somewhere around 2 million subscribers. And at this event, I have a little cocktail in my hand or whatever, and then I'm in heels, so I just take a moment with my friend and I sit on the couch for a moment to just like give my feet a rest, because you know how heels be. This girl comes up and she doesn't know me at all. She's like, hey, can you watch my phone really quick while I charge it and my drink? That's common, sometimes like common decency. If someone's running to the bathroom or they have to run somewhere briefly, they'll say, can you watch my things? And yeah, I'll do that all the time, I ask people to do that from time to time if I'm in like a Panera or something like that. So that's what I was expecting. But this girl literally in the VIP tent just walked around for like 25, almost 30 minutes talking to people and laughing and joking and all this stuff. And she literally left me there with her belongings like I was a coat room attendant or something like that. So I ended up unplugging her phone, taking her drink, and I think she left her purse there too. And I just said, hey, I have to go somewhere. I have an engagement to be at. And then she's like, oh, thanks. And then she didn't, really acknowledge me further any point in time after that event, didn't say hi at any future events, and that's something I experienced a lot. And then the last microaggression I'm going to talk about, this is a long video guys, so thank you for staying with me. Now, I'm originally from New York, so I understand how it can be if there's a space that's of close proximity, and even then it's just polite and human decency to say excuse me. I cannot tell you how many times I have been bumped by a white woman in a public area where either people noticed or no one noticed but me and the woman. Only on a very, very rare few occasions has anyone ever said I'm sorry or excuse me. One woman, I actually pointed it out to her. I'm like, hey, I noticed you bumped into me and didn't say excuse me or acknowledge it, but yeah, like I just went up to her and she did like this and then walked away. She didn't say anything. Like, I'm getting stressed just thinking about this. The next thing I'm going to talk about is a little bit of psychology behind racism. So this is from Psychology Today, and this article was drawn from a variety of scholarly sources. Again, check the description box if you want to know more about what those were. I wanted to break down a little bit of that mindset and why it's so toxic and where it actually comes from. All right, so it says, sometimes when basically people feel secretly inadequate, just like bullies and etc. and things through history we'll see, they will withdraw empathy from other members of people that are not in their immediate group, which is why I feel so many people are so desensitized to seeing black children and families and people murdered and feeling nothing, when they see that. but feeling everything when you see an Amber Alert for a white child. And then it says, finally, moving into the most dangerous and destructive extreme of racism, people may project their own psychological flaws and their own failings onto another group as a strategy of avoiding responsibility and blame. This is why sometimes there's such a defensive nature when you may bring up race in a group of people that may not experience any racial prejudice. This explains a lot about neo-Nazis, especially the individuals I've seen on documentaries that are white, uneducated, and impoverished, where they will start to blame Jews and black people and immigrants for taking their jobs, and black people for what do they blame us for? Those negative things they say about these groups is usually to make us the scapegoat for negative things in the world. That's why oftentimes when a black person does something that is, you know, not so good, they become the face of that category. We have come to see so many white men, directors, etc. in Hollywood who have been immensely accused of rape, sexual assault, racism, violence, all these things that still are, some of them, working today. But who is the face of rape and sexual assault today? Bill Cosby. There are so many actors who have been accused, if not completely arrested, for domestic violence. And a lot of them were white men and some even white women. But who's the face of domestic violence right now? Chris Brown. And I'm not saying don't give negative consequences to people of color if they do something wrong. I'm just saying be fair, be just. Don't make us the scapegoat and the poster child for everything wrong with the country, but then forget to tell everything that we've done so right for this country. All right, so another big topic that is a question that I've seen a lot is when people who are white will say they've experienced racism, and it's not just black people, and there's racism everywhere. The racism that they experience can never compare to that of a minority. And the reason why is one major factor. I'm not saying that there's no racial bias. Most groups and individuals have racial biases of their own, if not all of them. However, white men and women in America and many places in the world are the only group that have racial bias that is fully backed and supported by an entire institution that was built on that. So if someone has a bias towards you, or says something unfavorable towards you, or acts rudely towards you, the reason why that can never be compared to what I as a black woman experience and so many other people experience, your stare or improper stare can result in the cops being called, and an institution that praises itself on incarcerating people of color can mean me losing my freedom. So that stare isn't just a stare. No one ever said that there wasn't racial bias in every aspect of life, but there is an institution protecting the racial bias of white men and women. Next big thing, I want to talk about the definition of gaslighting. Gaslighting is such an important topic, and it is so under-discussed in my personal opinion. And what is the meaning of gaslighting? Here's the definition. So due to the fact that gaslighting is a tactic that is made to belittle the sanity of the victim of gaslighting, it can play immense roles in trauma for people of color, and it has been used actively in the Holocaust, and it's still used actively today by white supremacist groups. It is used actively today in the media, and gaslighting just means the sky is blue. There's factual evidence to show the sky is blue. There are videos to show the sky is blue. There are pictures to show the sky is blue. It says in old books that weren't in your school system that the sky is blue. Gaslighting is a popular tactic that's also used in domestic violence and instances of sexual abuse. Categories of gaslighting are all still the same, and I'm going to read some out to you, and also be aware maybe you might have done this or said something like this when a racial topic came up. Maybe you've thought this during this video. The first tactic is blocking and diverting. When we gaslight African Americans, we often do so by trying to change the subject instead of discussing the matter at hand. The people on Twitter that say, I'm sick of talking about slavery and racism. When will you stop pulling the race card? Why can't I say all lives matter? Things like that. Another popular one is changing the subject or countering. When we gaslight Black Americans, we often refuse to acknowledge their personal experiences that they are sharing with you. They are not here to debate with you. They are not here to question you. If you talk about your mom or dad to your friend, does your friend interrogate the validity of your parents being your parents? Because what? That is your truth. That is something that you shared with someone. So when a person of color is sharing a truth, that is not for you to debate. That is simply them venting and sharing something with you. So in the comment section, remember that. This is not a video of debate. This is me sharing my truths and things I've experienced and things I've seen and my friends have experienced and seen and my family has experienced and seen. This basically belittles the original subject. So when people say, what about Black privilege? Affirmative action is really hurting white people. Why do African Americans all have this victim mindset? Obama, Oprah, and Denzel made it, so why can't you? Oh yeah, and then in the instances of police brutality, but what about all the white people who have been shot? So countering everything. And I noticed that's a very popular thing that is so annoying. It's so annoying. I can't be able to share a personal experience that I've had without someone countering it with something or saying, well, what about Black on Black crime? Like that, and you're venting to somebody you know, and it's this terrible problem going on, and then someone's like, well, what about my friends? You're gonna be like, we're not talking about that right now. That the next tactic when gaslighting is denial, avoidance, and forgetting. You know, African Americans were the ones that sold the slaves, right? Trying to cast the blame off onto the oppressed group. I refuse to listen. Black Lives Matter is a hate group. You know, that refusal to understand, that complete denial, the avoiding of the subject matter, or conveniently forgetting lots of information that makes it an argument or makes it a discussion or a debate when someone is literally, as I said, sharing their truth with you. It is not a debate. It is not something for you to counter. It is not your place to tell someone that they haven't been hurt, especially when there's so much evidence of the hurt that we experience on a daily basis.
And I feel like that we are treated differently than other people, and I don't like how we're treated. And we are Black people, and we shouldn't have to feel like this. We shouldn't have to protest because y'all are treating us wrong. We do this because we need to and have rights. Our fathers and mothers are killed, and we can't even see them anymore. That's right. It's a shame that we have to go to the graveyard and bury them. And we have tears, and we shouldn't have tears.
There's no denying it at this point. There's so much factual evidence. There are so many videos on the internet. There are so many books. There are so many articles. There is me telling you. There is your coworker experiencing it. There's the subtle things you've seen and ignored. And maybe you might live in a community where you're sheltered and you don't see as much because maybe your community is not diverse. Or maybe you just didn't ask. You know what I mean? You might have Black friends and maybe they just didn't talk about it in front of you because you divert every time they try. So be mindful of gaslighting. The last tactic of gaslighting is twisting or reframing. So an unfortunate amount of times when Black leaders discuss their personal struggles with oppression and inequality, they get this. If Black Lives Matter, then why are they burning down their own city? There are so many videos of people who have been of color, calm, hands up, everything you could possibly say to do right has been done, and they were still shot.
Let him go! What the fuck?
So when you say if they had just listened, then they would be alive, you're negating completely all the people who have listened who aren't alive. And also sometimes when you guys see these clips of Black people who may argue with the police, psychologically in abusive relationships, in all of these different areas of life, it is often the batterer or the person who is perpetrating the abuse who is able to remain calm and smile through it because their goal is an emotional reaction from the victim. So sometimes when you see someone cursing or someone saying, "Why are you grabbing your gun?" etc., it's because they have lost emotional control at the hands of psychological abuse. And it's as simple as that. So when you might say, I mean, the cops said a bunch of smart remarks or told them calm down or to shut up and all that, but they didn't have to react that way. If someone's psychologically abusing you, the likelihood of an emotional reaction is almost inevitable. Fun fact, since we do experience a lot of these things on a daily basis from micro to large scale, it's more often than not that we are calm.
So how long has this been going on, this thing? How long?
Black is in fashion.
Cool.
It's all good.
Don't talk to your dad. It's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Forget about it.
Oh, no, it's cool. I was just confused.
Forget it. Never mind. I'm sorry. It's all good, right?
So you're comfortable enough, right?
It's perfect. Thanks.
I do know Tiger.
By the way, I would have voted for Obama for a third term if I could.
But it's only so many times, like I said, that someone can paper cut you in the same place before you scream. And then they capture the reaction and stereotype Black people as these aggressors, as these violent beings. And it's unfair. There are some people that just genuinely gaslight and they do all of the things that I just said intentionally, but a lot of people gaslight racism unintentionally because somewhere deep down they genuinely believe that it's not a problem. They genuinely believe that people are exaggerating. They genuinely believe that it does not exist because those people oftentimes say they don't participate or they have this ideology of the bad guy or the bad person. And this is toxic because there's this feeling that you have to be a bad person to be a racist or to do something racist or to promote a racist institution. And that is not always true. Some people believe because they have families and children, when they see a Black person in a store, they don't give them any problems, they don't call them the N-word, that they are not participating in racism. But I will say this right now, for once and for all, having a Black friend is not courageous. Being nice to Black people and giving them normal human decency is not brave. Neither of these two things will put a dent in racism because they're for your own comfort and benefit at the end of the day. Having that Black friend, they might be a really cool person and you like hanging out with them. That's for your benefit. And being kind to that person who's working at the checkout line, like, that's for your benefit, because who wants to get in an argument at the grocery store, right? Calling out racist behavior, calling out microaggressions as a white person, that's brave. Identifying your own faults, your own bias, how you may have gaslighted when someone spoke about their experiences, how you may have indirectly or directly played a part in a racist institution. Identifying your own subconscious bias, that is brave, and that is what will help in the future. Lastly, now just to close out the video, after sharing a few of my personal experiences and educating a little bit more, I want to share how you can help if you're a person who you feel is of high moral standing and who you feel you want to improve and you don't want to be a part of a racist institution and you want to be a part of positive change. Then here are some things you can do. Tip number 1, listen to people of color when they speak about racist experiences and prejudices in their life and privilege. Resist the urge to become defensive, resist the urge to interject, because by doing so and gaslighting the situation, you are becoming a part of that story. You're projecting onto them, because oftentimes when they share their experiences, they're not talking about you, they're talking about previous experiences they had that day or earlier that week. But the moment that you divert what they're saying or don't listen or change the subject or try to use your personal experiences to identify with them, oh, I'm a woman and I experience so many things too, so I understand. Don't do that. Just listen to them and let them talk about their personal experiences without feeling the need to make it about you. If you feel uncomfortable when a person of color or a Black person is speaking about race, good. That means you're getting somewhere. You are stepping out of your comfort zone. We are forced every single day in most of my entire education to learn about white Americans and about white history throughout the world. It was required of us, all of education, to listen about your history and your triumphs and your wars. So when we speak, at the very least, just listen. Despite being uncomfortable, we've been uncomfortable for 400 years. You can be uncomfortable for an hour or 30 minutes in a conversation that will help you grow as a person. My next tip is to practice strength. Pure strength, okay? Not fragility, strength. So if you think that it is annoying or whining or just gets on your nerves when Black people speak about racism or minorities speak about racism, for every second that you are annoyed, we are traumatized for years. Do not be fragile and be strong and listen. Listen, okay? And honor their stories and their truths. Be inquisitive and not defensive. Oftentimes, again, review the gaslighting section of this video. There's a difference between asking questions and genuinely wanting to understand versus being defensive and wanting to defend yourself, okay? Like I said, we've been forced to learn about white people our whole lives, from elementary all the way through till college and even after that. Please ask questions and come from a place of empathy when you ask and genuine understanding. Do not force your views. I think it's because throughout history, so much has been about you all the time, that when a person that isn't in your immediate group or what have you speaks about themselves, it's uncomfortable. That's why there's all these protests about BT and things like that, because it's just uncomfortable for another race to have something that is just theirs. And that's it. And you've had so many things that are just yours for centuries. It's okay. All right. And lastly, openly call out and reject racist values or privileged values that you may see in public. The show What Would You Do is a perfect example of that, where you see some people speak up and some people just become bystanders. And if you've ever looked into law, if someone robs a bank and you're in the getaway car and you don't say anything, you become an accessory to that crime. And when you are a person who is a part of the oppressing group, whether you are being violent, malicious, microaggressive, gaslighting or not, if you've seen it, if you've heard it, if you've participated in any way and not said something, not called that person out, then you are an accessory to racism and you might be a racist yourself. So I encourage anyone watching this who is white to ask yourself, do I feel defensive right now? When the whole point of this video was for me to learn and listen. When this whole video was about this young woman's personal experiences with microaggression and her personal ways that people can help her. Why do I feel defensive? Ask yourself that if you do feel defensive. And after you come to that conclusion, I encourage you to look back at this video, take notes about microaggression, take notes about gaslighting, take notes about different things that can be subtle, covert forms of racism that can contribute to the 89% of counselees that have experienced great trauma, because it makes a difference. And yeah, I think that's everything I have. I'm terrified to release this video. But I live my whole life terrified all the time. And because money hasn't changed the fact that all these things still happen. There's still a lot of things I can't escape, and I need your help. Like, I need everyone's help. We need you. We need people who are a part of the group of people that are doing these terrible things to speak up. We need you. This isn't criticizing. This is teaching. This is venting. This is educating. And this is expressing that we do need you.